Good morning, Cindy. How are you doing today?
I am very well. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited to be talking to a bunch of Holonians and hopefully other people too.
Colonians are definitely going to be excited to see the artist, to see the composer, to see the musician. I'm not sure that how I should recognize you because you come with so many talents.
Oh, well, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of ability in a lot of different areas, and I wound up using just about all of those different talents when I was living in Hull. I lived there for about 12 years, and so probably my biggest contribution to the town was being the composer of the official town song of Hull, which is Underneath a Hullonian Sky.
And I did listen to that. It was amazing. And what inspired you? Because I'm sure that you have spent enough time in Hull. If I'm not mistaken, that was in your early days in Hull that you have that imagination and wrote that song. So what inspired you to write that song?
Yes. Well, I had moved to Hull and I had actually gone to the Hull Performing Arts and asked them if they needed some sort of a play or something written. I just wanted to get involved, and they told me that it would be really great if I could write a musical about the Weir River estuary, which is right there in Hull. For those who don't know, when you very first come into town, is right where the windmill is.
Yes.
And the problem with that was that I was a C student in science in school, and I wasn't even really sure what an estuary was. I just knew it had something to do with water. So I had a lot of research, but I left. I spent a year doing research, and I came back just about a year later and said, "Here, I've written a musical about the Weir River estuary." And they decided to move forward with it. And so we put it on, and one of the songs was Underneath a Holonian Sky. And I was inspired to write that because I found out after moving to Hull that people who live in Hull are called Hullonians. And oh my
Yes.
gosh, the poeticness of that was just too much to resist. So I had to do something with it. And yeah, it wound up being a big hit. And then the Town Board of Selectmen very kindly voted unanimously to have it be the official town song of Hull. And we are one of very few towns in the state of Massachusetts that has an official town song. So I'm incredibly proud.
That is so amazing. I mean, that word Hungarian fascinated me back in 2021, I guess. Yes. So that was the first time when I was taking a couple of pictures in the winter and I was posting it on this page, Today's in Hull. And that's where one of the lady commented that if you are in love with Hull in the winters, then you are a true Hullonian. So at that point in time, I was just trying to figure this out, like why are the differentiation between summer and then winter. But now that I have spent enough time in Hull, I can make the difference that in winter that's pretty quiet, and in summer it's so exciting. People coming out of their houses, it just draws a completely different picture altogether.
Yes, I think in the winter in Hull, there's a certain a New England feeling to it, a
Yes.
really deep New England feeling. It's cold and it's desolate, but there's something very, very beautiful in that, and the sparseness of it, and the waves and the sea. And then, as you said, in summer, it just completely brightens up and becomes an amazing tourist destination and a beautiful place by the ocean.
Yes, that is absolutely true. So, Cindy, whenever I begin a podcast, I always begin asking the guests that what inspired them to come on a podcast, which is not based on the celebrities, because generally when people think about the podcast, they always have some famous personalities in place or someone who is known around the world and people to get inspired from. But I also consider you this in the same league. Like you are a kind of celebrity for me because the kind of talents that you come up with, it's not normally people can carry with that kind of versatility. However, with you being a part of Hull for almost more than a decade's time, I still consider you to be the part of Hull. And to the point when I call this niche of this podcast for the ordinary people and share their extraordinary experiences. How do you feel about this concept?
Oh, I think that's a great point because actually that's something that I used as the basis of my new book that has just come out. It's called Making Bread Out of Straw: How to
Wow.
Succeed with Almost Nothing by Helping Others, Thinking Creatively, and Ignoring Obstacles. And I can tell you that when I was in Hull, I hadn't yet achieved the level of success that I have now. So it was all part of my experience and my journey getting from point A to point B. And while I was in Hull, for instance, I was still not widely known. And at the point that I was ultimately invited to perform at the White House, they had called my house to let me know that I was being invited, and my phone was turned off for non-payment because I was not doing very well at that point at all. I was, still trying to succeed as an artist, and it was a very, very difficult path. So I can very much relate to everyday people who are seeking to get ahead because I was one of them. I was wanting to be a success as an artist,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of different components. I discovered that you can have an immense amount of talent, you can be very hardworking, you can have a great deal of ambition, and even luck plays a part. But what I ultimately discovered, and what got me from point A to point B, was recognizing my humanity, my creativity, and my ability to just ignore obstacles as they came up. Most of them were not real. And as I always say, most obstacles to whatever anyone's dream is aren't out
Mhm.
there. They're in here. They're going to start in your own mind. You will be your own worst critic. You will be the person who tells you that you can't do it. And my message is to get people to work past that, because as soon as you have confidence in yourself, even if you're not sure you can do what it is that's being asked of you, if you have the raw skills, go ahead and try. In the case of writing a musical drama about an estuary, I had never done one before, I'll be honest, but it was a challenge. And I wound up learning so much in the process, and it all came together so beautifully with the help and the involvement of so many other people. And ultimately, the musical wound up winning Massachusetts Cultural Council Gold Star Award. And
Wow.
we received a legislative citation um, for contributing to the arts and culture of Massachusetts. So it was a real honor to see that just starting out with something where I was flying by the seat of my pants wound up being a really great thing that drew a lot of people together, and made a success as far as our audiences and as far as raising awareness about the Weir River estuary, which is an area of critical environmental concern. I actually was living on the banks of the outer estuary at the time, so I don't know if that makes me an endangered species or not, but but being
It
part
makes you real.
right. But that was terrific, and it just goes to show you that there are things in life that you may never have done before, but go ahead and try. Why not? One of the things that I say in the book is, you may not have a lot of money to put towards your goal. You may not have connections. You may not have networking. You may not belong to any prestigious clubs or alumni organizations that you think would normally help you. And you may not even be formally educated in your field, and yet you can succeed. And when people say, well, how can you be so sure of that? Well, because everything I'm telling you is described me when I was living in Hull.
Yes.
And yet, by just believing in what I could do, and especially by helping others, I can talk later about volunteerism, but that's such an important part of success. And it's one that most people overlook. Getting involved with groups, helping other people, just doing whatever you can for people. If you can help, do it, even if you don't necessarily expect a return. So these are messages that I'm very happy to share with the viewers of your podcast today.
That is very inspiring. And thank you so much for sharing all your personal experiences in the book and even on the podcast that we're going to discuss more. But I was reading about your interest with your music that started in your childhood when you started playing piano when you were 5 or 6 years old. And since then, having that enthusiasm in continuation, making it successful not just as your day to day work, your passion, but also considering that a part of your helping nature, or how you are still inspiring people, with your music, with your acting classes, with your book, or with your dramas in your theater. I mean, how is that being able to make into continuation, because people lose interest if they are not getting the success. And because you're saying that you have faced many obstacles, and yes, those obstacles are not unreal in the mind, but still there is a fight to fight with your own self.
Well, I think wanting to do something with music was something that never left me. It was just always there. I tell a lot of people, when asked questions like yours. I didn't choose this path, it chose me. You can't really get away from it. And in a lot of ways, I don't consider this my native language. And by that, I don't just mean English, I mean any human language. Music is
Right.
really so much more of the language in which I can really express myself and which I can understand other artists.
Mhm.
Um, it's something that you can't help but do. I mean, I feel like a fish out of water when I'm talking, but if I can play something, I can express an emotion. And there's so much more emotion that can be expressed. When you listen to the works of Beethoven, for example, you know, when he's very loud and thunderous, he's saying one thing, but when he really speaks to your heart is when he's whispering. Anytime you hear any part of Beethoven's music when he's very quiet, that's when he's saying something that is just profound. And those are things that I pick up when I hear the works of other artists, and that's something that goes into my work as well. But it keeps you motivated by its own, by virtue of what it is. You can't let it go. It's around your neck 24 hours a day. So I think everybody at one point either struggles with it and loses and decides that they're going to go on and become an accountant or something, or they struggle with it and they win and they decide this is for better or worse what they're going to make of their lives. I think people who lose that fight, who say, you know, I'm just not going to do this, it's probably because they're not able to scale it. And one of the things that I mention in the book, Making Bread Out of Straw, is that there may be times in your life when it really is impractical to do. I mean, as I say, if you have 10 children to support, you know, making a living as an artist, making tinfoil art, you know, this may not be the time for you, but you can still do other things. As you're driving to and from work, you can be thinking about what you want to create when you have the opportunity and the time. You can be thinking about places to, you know, when you're sitting at your desk at work, you can be scribbling little notes about where you'll be able to sell it after you create it
Right.
and you have that time. So then when you are in a position eventually to be able to do it, you have all of that work done for you. So you want to always stay involved in whatever way you possibly can, even if you have to scale it back. That's always a better option than abandoning it, because if you abandon it, you will just be eaten alive by regret later on. Especially if it's something that's really in your heart to do. So I encourage people to try, even on whatever level they can, to work with their art.
I mean, that is so amazing because generally people also tend to get so busy in their own selves, just to fight with their own battles or, in the race of either getting beaten by others or beat others, to reach somewhere. But the way that you are living your journey is not only you are winning the race with your own self by supporting yourself, but also supporting others. That is eventually working as a motivation and is also giving you a reason to continue what you're doing right now.
It's so true, and competition is something that should always be in a healthy way. Like I use the Olympics as an example. For me, competition is when I hear somebody that I know has way more genius than I do, and I try to let that inspire me to be, maybe I won't be as great as them, but it'll make me be a little better. You never want competition to be about getting somebody out of your way so you can get ahead, because that's based in a fear-based mentality where people feel like if they're ahead of me, I'm not as good, or if I don't push them out of the way, I can't be great. And the point is that success works best when everybody flourishes, when life is good for everybody. That's when we all shine. That's really what you want to be striving for. There's no lack of success out there that you have to crush somebody else to make yours. It doesn't work that way. It's something that's available to everybody, and there's plenty of it. And if we all strive for it and help each other, we'll all attain it.
I wish if the world would think like you, it will be the best place to live in. It still is, but just, with different mindsets and, how people try and make, difference between, each other. It just, doesn't let anyone take anywhere. And people just kind of get stuck in the round circles of reaching nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that your book is definitely going to help with you in person helping people, reaching out and getting experiences. What is your one of the experiences that you can talk about that inspired you a lot to reach somewhere or to, something that you were at one point in time, at a point that maybe it's not going to happen, but then you didn't give up and, continued that journey?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, I won't lie. There were times when I would say to myself, how in the world am I going to do this?
Yeah.
At various junctures. Either I was presented with something that was very big, or I just felt like I wasn't getting where I wanted to be. Um, I guess I have two answers for that. One would be whenever I really felt like I wasn't going to get ahead with anything, it didn't seem rational to me. As much of a creative person as I am, I'm also a very rational thinker. And I thought it's irrational that I should be able to have these abilities and not succeed with them. Why would I have been given all of this if I'm not meant to do something with it? So the illogicalness of that is what made me say, well, I'm going to have to succeed because I've been given this. So
Right.
whatever it was that gave me this is going to make sure that I can share it with the world. That's basically the pattern of thought. So instead of reframing it as a binary, either succeeding or not succeeding, maybe to think of it more in terms of if you have this, clearly you've been entrusted to do something with it. So you will succeed in one way
I
or
mean,
another.
generally people, ask the same question, why or why not? That's the whole difference. Like generally people are, in that zone of why it is not happening, why it's not just going right with me, but with the world. But you don't know about other people's story. Maybe they are asking the question, why not? And that's a self, explanatory question that we should be asked to ourselves, why not? Or why can't we? And I think that that is what something that you have been asking to yourself, why can't, which is what have been helping you with that versatility of being a musician, composer, writer, and the actor. How are you able to cope up so many talents together? Because just in succeeding one is a nightmare for people like me. But with you having all those talents in place, it's a great combination. But I'm sure it would not be easy.
You have to throw yourself into it. It's not something you can. I love the quote about you can't cross the ocean until you release the fear of not seeing the shore that you're leaving. You really have to throw yourself into it. And when you do, it's like floating in the water. When you float, if you're floating on your back and you try to cringe up a little, you'll sink. You'll sink.
Yes.
But if you just abandon yourself and say, I'm going to let the water carry me, you will float. So it's the same principle. If you abandon yourself to it and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it as well as I can, you give it the energy that it needs to succeed. And I'm talking about success on two different tracks here. One would
Mhm.
be, career success in the sense of financial or being able to support yourself and sustain it. And the other type of success as far as artistic. So for the type of success we're talking about, where I say you have to abandon yourself, that's for the artistic success. As
Mhm.
far as the financial success, then that involves you being creative, but in a different way to promote your career. And that's the thing that I find very funny. A lot of incredibly creative people don't know how to promote themselves. They don't know how to get ahead. You can give them the barest tools to begin, and they'll make all kinds of creative things with it. But as soon as you say, "Oh, well, how could you promote that gig that you're doing, playing music at this restaurant next week?" You get the deer in the headlights look. They have no idea. And yet, so
Yes.
they have the mechanics for being creative, but they're only used to using it in one field. It's like people that I know who are accountants that work with millions and millions of dollars, but their own personal finances are in a shambles. It's like when they're
Exactly.
sitting at a desk and being told, manage this money, they can do it brilliantly, but go home and look at their own checkbook and they're lost. So you have to be able to pivot that creativity into also marketing yourself so that you become successful.
I think one of the reasons, and this is completely what I feel, and I may be wrong, that people generally go just by the books and the X and the Y's rather than writing their own story. And I feel that once you start writing your own story, you don't have any rules. You don't have any doors from where you can enter or exit out of. And that's where you find, different ways of making successes, because generally, like the right example what you said, that the accountants, working on millions or trillions of dollars, but when it comes to their personal expenses, they are still shuffling. But if they will apply different economics or different mathematics or calculations, other than what they have learned in their schoolings or their colleges, I'm not saying that that is not the right way, but having any way is a right way unless you are giving a try to everything.
Exactly, exactly. I know people who are masters of chess. You put them in a social situation, they have no idea how to interact.
Exactly.
They can think 15 moves ahead in a chess game, but they don't know how to negotiate human relationships. So they have the skills, they have the tools, it's within them. They just have never thought of turning it to that type of situation before. So that's really all it takes.
That is true.
So
Let's talk a little bit about the Halonians that you have been, that you have spent a good amount of your life, and how did Hull help you in inspiring your work? Because I personally am feeling that it's a very inspirational place. People are amazing here. More than anything, the nature, the beach is something that I've never experienced anywhere.
Yes, that is very true. In fact, that's the reason that I came to Hull in the first place. I
Mm,
had been living in Providence, Rhode Island, and I wanted to move up to Massachusetts, and I had visited many different areas all around Boston, and I just wasn't finding the right place. It just didn't feel right. And I knew a piano tuner who had actually been tuning the piano of somebody there in Hull. And he said, "Well, I
mhm.
just came back from Hull, and it's really beautiful. It's this place right on the ocean. Maybe you should check that out." So that very afternoon, I got in my car, I drove up there, and wow, I said, "This is where I have to stay. This is it." It was so beautiful. I think because it is right there on the ocean, it's got so much beauty, and I think that's what attracts so many artists. I can't quote any statistics, but I would bet that statistically, Hull has a lot more painters, performing artists, musicians than many of the surrounding towns. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of like a mirror image of Gloucester, which is, if you've ever been up there, it's very much the same sort of thing. I mean, it's just on the upper part of Boston. And same thing, there's a lot of theater, performing arts, musicians, visual artists. So something about that beauty really lends itself to inspiring people in the arts and creative people. And I really hope that's something that the town capitalizes on because it's one of its great strengths.
I mean, I can truly relate with that because it's just in general when you meet people, there is such a positivity on people's faces here, and that calmness that comes from the beach, and it's just something is in the air of this place that I have never seen anywhere. I mean, I have traveled multiple countries, but since I'm in Hull, it's kind of a place that attracts you to just be here.
Yes, oh, very much. And that certainly is what contributed to its history. Everybody knows that Joseph P. Kennedy, the father of President Kennedy, had a summer estate there. I know whenever people from Europe or around the world would visit me in Hull, they would
Mhm.
say, if this were anywhere else in the world, houses would be like $100 million each.
Exactly.
It's so beautiful and so inspiring. It's a really sort of a hidden secret gem of New England.
I mean, one of the reasons that why it is still like that because people haven't made much of changes in this area, and still, if I look at the pictures of 50 years back and now, I mean, I go and see in the library, and there are different contents that are available online as well. It still seems same. There is nothing that has changed, and that's what something that I feel that still keeps the purity. Otherwise, with the construction and how the world is moving towards commercializing everything, I mean, there's something to the roots that is just going away. And with Hull still being able to, kept that same atmosphere, that same environment, it's just fascinated to be a part of such an amazing place.
Oh, yes. And I would love to give a shout out to some of the places there that I absolutely adore. You and I were talking about Weinberg's Bakery, which I spent a lot of time there. Also, Toast, that was my favorite place to go have breakfast
Yes.
on Saturday mornings. And Nantasket Pizza, which I think is the best pizza in the area. So I want to say hello to them and wish them all the best.
I definitely will, and I'm sure if they will be watching the video, they will definitely be more appreciative about it. And
Yes, Hull is really blessed to have a lot of good places to eat, and those are three of my very favorites.
yeah, and with Toast, I mean, it's just the spot where the restaurant is. It's like right in front of the ocean. That morning view is just to die for.
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely amazing. And the guys up at Nantasket Pizza, and I'm from New York, so I'm a very, very harsh and biased critic. I should point that out. I'm a Manhattan girl, so pizza is something I'm incredibly intensely picky about, and the guys at Nantasket Pizza make fabulous, fabulous pizza.
I can only imagine that you being from New York and been living in Hull for more than 10 years. What was your journey of moving from New York, that is such a pace city and everyone is just busy in their own work or their own life? And with Hull, it is such a peaceful environment that you get time to think over. How was that for you?
Oh, it was wonderful. Actually, I had been around a lot of places in the country. I was born in Manhattan and grew up in the city. And then my family moved to Texas when I was, I don't know, about 13, 14 years old. And then that was where I began my music career, performing in restaurants. And so I was a paid performer as a child and really got to know how to be professional, how to be treated like an adult. And I had to act like an adult and be very responsible with that. But then after that, I went to college in San Marcos, which is not too far from Austin. After that, I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for quite a while. And then I moved back and lived in New York again, down near the city in Westchester County. Where did I go after that? Oh, then I lived in Connecticut for a little while and then out to Providence. And I, my life had been at a really heady pace up to that point, and I really did need somewhere that I could rest. I needed a refuge, a place that was quiet and peaceful, and that was why Paul spoke to me so much. It was a fantastic place to go, and being by the water is always restorative. My family is Irish and Italian and French and some other things, but the Irish people always used to say being by the water is very healing and very restorative, and absolutely, I found that to be the case when I was living in Hull.
I'm more of a mountaineer. I mean, with the place that I'm born and brought up, hills are the closest destinations where you can go and get a peace. And now I'm not saying that I'm a complete beach guy, but being living at the beach is what something that kind of giving a different perspective of there is unconditional support and there is no limit with the ocean that you can count on, and that's what a different definition of beaches that I'm learning. And eventually I myself probably would gonna convert from mountaineer to a beach guy.
Well, you don't have to pick. That's another thing. It could be different places at different times in your life.
The
There are
right combination would be you're living on a hilltop and having the water view in
whatever
front.
exactly cliff. But no, at different times in your life, you may be drawn to be where you need to be. So maybe the beach atmosphere is where you need to be right now. So it's
Yeah.
good. Good.
I'm enjoying every single moment here. And this is where, I see, about the opportunities in life that how I'm learning, with your articles as well, that life will come and give you the options to pick and choose. It's you who have to be ready rather than running in a race. And that's what I also see in your articles that being published in multiple magazines. And just for the audience, it's to a point that now Cinzi is writing her own book, but a book is going to be too small in terms of the experiences that she comes up with, and she has shared multiple ones on different magazines. And one of the aspects that I would like to bring on the podcast is her new defined word called neppuccino. And I will only let Cinzi to talk more about it.
An appuccino. Okay. I didn't actually come up with the term, but I recently saw it and I thought it was pretty interesting because I've been
I read it for the first time with your article, and I found it really amazing.
I'm not sure who came up with the term, but it's a practice that I have been doing for as long as I can remember. A nappuccino is a wonderful way to boost your creativity and your energy and keep feeling your best all day long. And this is how you do it. Around lunchtime, you eat your lunch, and then afterwards, you have a cup of coffee in the afternoon. And then right after you have your coffee, you go and you lie down and you have a nap for about 20 minutes. And what this may seem counterintuitive to be taking a nap after you're drinking coffee, but what happens is that the nap lowers a chemical in your brain that in turn makes you feel more alert by the lowering of it. And then the coffee and the nap together both do that. When you wake up from a nap, it's very lowered, and coffee also lowers it. So by combining those two things and taking that 20-minute nap, you are really extra power charging your creativity and your alertness. The advice about it is, first of all, it has to be caffeinated coffee, no decaf. I mean, who would drink decaf anyway? There's no point.
Exactly. But
But
that's a question that most of the viewers would gonna have, that generally people thinks of having a coffee, would kind of wake you up. And then how do you able to, get in that nap zone after having coffee? Because psychologically it's the mind that now that I have a sip, I'm going to be supercharged.
what I always say is, if you're not tired enough to take a nap after your afternoon coffee, you haven't been working hard enough. I could fall asleep on a roller coaster after drinking a gallon of coffee, but that's me.
So that's the check mark on individuals, that if you're not feeling sleepy, which means you're not working hard.
You're not working hard enough. So you should be able to lay down, and within about 5 minutes or so, you should be at least to nap lightly. And you also don't want to nap longer than 20 minutes, because then you will upset your evening sleep. But just to even, just lie down and just tune the world out. If you can't really fall into a very deep sleep, I mean, sometimes I notice it'll take me about 10 minutes because I have so much going on in my head. But just, deep breathing, just keep breathing, keep clearing your mind and relaxing, and you'll fall asleep eventually. And then you wake up, after 20 minutes, and you've got the alertness to keep you feeling your best and doing your best all the rest of the day.
I mean, it's so innovative that people generally, like I was saying earlier as well, that kind of get busy in their passions and their battles. But you're not only concentrating in getting successes of your dreams, but you are also working, great. You're also investing great amount of time on your body, on health and awareness, and also helping people that what they can do to enjoy this life. Because sometimes people, by the time reach to a point of success, it's the time that yes, they have the money to go anywhere, but they're tired enough, or they just don't want to do anything. So what's the formula of enjoying the life along with fulfilling your dreams?
Well, I lead a very regimented existence, which at first doesn't sound very attractive, but it really works. I have scheduled time when I need to be doing things, working on a musical or doing research for a play or writing music or whatever it is, writing chapters in a book. And then there's also regimented time that's for self-care, like taking a nap or, just getting outside for a walk or whatever it is. And then there's also regimented time for enjoying myself, whether that's the things I enjoy. I love to go to the opera. I love to go to the cinema. I love to watch polo matches. I love to watch, well, in America we call it soccer, but in Europe they call it football. Love football, watching that on TV. So I have those things planned out, and I make it so that the modules are movable. So if I wake up and I just absolutely do not feel like working today, it's just not happening for me. Instead of really trying to push that, I'll just go out and watch a Godzilla movie. So and then the next day maybe I'm all there and I'm ready to work. Or if I get up and I'm supposed to be having self-care time, but my head is whirring with ideas for my new book, I'll sit down and do that. So I just am able to move them around based on how I feel. I mean, you want to push yourself a little bit, but if it's just not happening, don't waste your time. Go do something else. Like, okay, well, I'm just not in a mood to write my book today. I'm going to go wash dishes for a while. You just so at least you're always getting something done that's good, but it may not, you can change what that thing is based on how you're feeling at that time. But a lot of it is yeah, just keeping yourself motivated, and in helping other people is also a form of energy. And that's very counterintuitive. People will think, well, if I'm helping somebody, I'm giving energy. You are, but you're getting back a lot more than you're giving. It's a lot like exercise boosting energy. But well, if I'm going to go out and jog or something, oh, that's going to use up a lot of energy. Yes, but it's going to elevate your metabolism. It's going to boost your blood flow. It's going to make you more alert and give you more energy. So helping other people is the same thing. I just get a complete charge out of being able to help somebody. Oh, I have a networking connection that'll help you here. Here you go.
Yeah.
That just like, yay, I helped somebody. It feels so good. So it's almost as good as, somebody giving me an award or applauding me or whatever. It's that same feeling. It's like, hey, I did this. Yay, I helped this person. They're going to get ahead. So doing that, and I think that's what people tend to neglect, that, well, I don't want to give my energy to that, but you're getting that energy back. I think, who was it, Benjamin Franklin or somebody, who said it's more blessed to give than to receive. And it is, when you give, you get a lot back. And I think people take that for granted.
I believe that this is the difference of looking at things. Like how you look at things is with the positivity, and also the identification that you are not helping others, you're helping yourself. But generally, people, tend to live in that ego, or keep themselves on the upper hand, that I help that person. So eventually, the karma, one of the other aspects of your articles, is like it's not what something that you are doing for someone else. Either you're doing good or bad is going to hit you back.
And that's how we're wired as humans. When we eat, when we drink, when we sleep, we feel good. That is nature's way of telling us you're doing the right thing. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. So we're wired to help each other. And I think we forget that in the midst of the world, where our natural state is to be kind and helpful to other people, to give to people when we can. And the what motivation makes us want to keep doing it is we do feel good after we do it. So that's how you know you're following the right path. I'm sure if you've ever been angry at somebody, screamed at them, torn them down, you don't feel good afterwards.
No,
That's your emotions
no.
telling you, don't do that. That's not good. So,
And
when
the
you
longer you're gonna take to hold that anger, or to hold that irritation, it is not going to impact the other person as much as it's going to impact yourself, because that is going to impact your present work, and the people that even are nice to you, that energy is going to reflect on them as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What is it that anger is like? Taking a hot coal and throwing it at somebody, and you're burning your hand, or what is it? Drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's the same thing. You're not punished for your anger. You're punished by your anger. So having any of that in your life isn't good. And if you can divest yourself of that as much as possible, even on a daily basis, little by little, it's like the tide coming and going. There's yet another lesson to learn.
Very well example.
You're not going to succeed, boom, all in one thing. The tide doesn't just boom, tide's in, it doesn't work like that. It comes in, then it goes out, then it comes in a little further and goes out a little, then it comes in a little further and goes out. So that's the same way we develop our virtues. It comes little bits, we're going to backslide, but then you go a little further the next time, and you have to trust the process that eventually you're going to be in a different frame of mind. Your thoughts are more often going to be consumed with good. You're going to be more noticing of opportunities to help and be helped. And taking help, as you were saying, is another important part of it. Some people feel that it's a sign of weakness to take help, when actually it's a sign of good sense. If you know that you are overwhelmed by something and you need help, it's correct and sensible to say, "Hey, I need a hand here." So people shouldn't be afraid to ask. The worst that can happen is that somebody tells them no.
Yep. The other part that I have, been inspired with some of the people that I have, grown up with, is there is nothing wrong in taking help, but then reward that formula back and help someone else. And that way is you kind of balancing that aspect of helping others or taking help from others. And like you said, rightly said, that we humans are meant to be kind and supportive to each other. And the sooner, the world is going to learn that, the better it's going to be for everyone.
If we could create a generosity-based society, imagine how incredible that would be, where volunteerism would really be the cornerstone of that. And that's the place where everyone can start right now. Something like 10% of all people in America volunteer their time. Imagine if that number were 40% or 80% or even 90%. Imagine 100%. People, they have the tendency to be overwhelmed by it and say, well, I can't save the world. Well, nobody's asking you to save the world.
Exactly.
Could you spend 1 hour a month doing something for somebody else? That's very manageable. And that's okay. Nobody's calling you to solve all the world's problems, between now and lunchtime. It's just the little things that you do. So finding a charity that resonates with you, that person should ask themselves, well, what need out there does resonate the most? Is it people suffering and struggling with homelessness or hunger? Is it charities that serve children or animals or the environment or political legislative activity for, whatever it is? If you figure out what that is, there's a very good website called Candid Guide Star.
Mhm.
It used to be called GuideStar, now it's Candid. But if you just type in Candid and charity or something like that, you'll find it on the internet. They list all the different charities, nonprofit organizations, what they do, how they serve, where their money goes, so you can see how they're run, and then decide which one resonates with you. Contact them and say, "What can I do?" These days, especially, nonprofit organizations are very aware that people are on limited time, so
Mhm.
they will give options. There may be things you can do that are very involved. There may be things where you're only involved an hour a month, and there are even things that you can do from home, so without leaving. So there's a lot of options out there. And if everybody could just figure out a way to spend 1 hour a month doing something, I think they'd be surprised by how much they get back. And I think we'd all be surprised by what a generosity-based society would make our world look like.
I think it's something that to start with your first step. Like to give you a very personal example, when I came to Hull, and this also we were talking off camera that I love taking pictures of something that I see is unusual or something that I would be missing tomorrow. And that's where, I started taking pictures of Hull and different, corners. And then I was like, till when I'm going to keep these pictures in my phone, maybe I should just open an Instagram account and just to save the storage and, post everything there. And then people started coming in, and then there are people who used to be, part of Hull, but because of work or any circumstances, they are no longer living in Hull. But they've been very appreciative that because of the pictures and the videos that I'm making, they are able to relive those moments and then able to, enjoy the time or kind of just enjoy those memories that they are grown up with. And that kind of worked as a motivation for me. Similarly, with this podcast as well, I feel that people who are doing the ordinary jobs, I feel there is nothing called ordinary. Everything is extraordinary if you are, focusing and being appreciative of what you are doing. And in a in a in a fashion of following what is being just shown in the movies or on the videos nowadays on Instagram, on small reels, I believe somewhere people are kind of trying to go in the direction of copying each other, and whatever is getting viral, just that is coming a new trend. And I feel that a day-to-day people, they are the more realistic people, are living different journeys with different issues, with different aspects of winning the races on a daily basis, but no one is talking about that. And that is my mode of beginning this podcast. Is yes, people do have coming to different places. People want to come to the US, people want to go to the UK, people want to go to Africa for different reasons. But what is the reality of people that are born there, that are living their life and with any kind of issues, whether constructing their own house, fixing their cars, or how to drive a boat? It's like there are different challenges that people are living with, and it doesn't matter whether the challenge is small or big, but if they are winning it successfully, that could be an inspiration for someone else. So it doesn't matter that whether you are making trillions of dollars, even if you are doing a small business, a local help, you are living your life by keeping your chin up, and that is something that people should be very much proud of.
Absolutely. The world needs people to bake bread and deliver the mail and do the accounting and all of those things. So anybody in those fields are part of the community of the life wherever they live. And that's a very important role. And I think there are a lot of unsung heroes. And that's why I think what you're doing is so important, to elevate those people and show, just because that person isn't on television, just because that person isn't all over the media, does not mean that what they're doing isn't important. In fact, if anything, that's what's holding up the whole society. Because if we didn't have those people, they're the ones that keep everything running, and we wouldn't have anything without them. So it's very important to recognize and celebrate that, as you're doing, because that's really what keeps the whole society going.
And like you rightly said, that it's the identification of what keeps you motivated, what keeps you happy. I feel that if I am living in a different country now, to be a part of that country, I have to be a part of the nature. I have to be the part of how people are. I have to learn people, because eventually, if I am going to make a decision whether I need to stay at a place A or a place B, I cannot make a decision without spending or getting that whole experience, that how that place is. And I feel the right way of getting that experience is connecting with people and knowing their journeys. And especially with Hull, this is a place I call it the place of legends, with the immense amount of experiences that they come up with, and that is going to be pretty inspiring for people around the world, because people who are living here are not just born and brought up in the US. They have lived their lives in different countries, and I can only imagine the experience that they can come and share on the podcast is going to be truly amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And even going back into your history, you have an incredible legend that I'm sure you've heard of before, Joshua James, who
Yes.
was an amazing lifesaver and is considered the father of the US Coast Guard. And so Hull has always been a place of legendary people, and it continues to be. And as you said, so many people who live there, especially people who've come from other places, have all kinds of experiences and background, and it's a very cosmopolitan, very tiny little place.
But for someone who have that inspiration in terms of being respectful towards music, but then how to establish their career is what something that you would have any suggestions for.
Well, the very first suggestion that I give everybody who wants to do something creative or even anything at all is that
Mm.
your best two tools are at the end of your hand. It's your index fingers. And if anybody tells you that you can't do it or it's unrealistic or it's not going to happen, you take those fingers, you stick them firmly in your ears, and you say, la,
Wow.
la, la, I can't hear you. But beyond that, if you want to continue, just do it little at a time. I mean, it's, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. Even if you feel like the distance between where you are now and where you want to be is enormous. It's just going to be a matter of continuing to take those steps and being committed to it, being devoted to always working towards it, because your dream deserves you. Your dream deserves your devotion. So make it something that you enshrine in your life as, I'm just going to keep taking steps towards it, the way you would care for a growing plant or something like that. You're just always committed to it. It's always there and you're always taking care of it. And the best encouragement I can give is actually the dedication from my new book, Making Bread Out of Straw. The dedication reads, "This book is dedicated to anyone who thinks nobody believes in them because they're wrong. I believe in you." And I do. To anybody out there who wants to do something, I believe in you. If you say nobody believes in you, you're wrong. I believe in you. So
So
I'm
Cinzi Lavin is the answer. If people say that they don't know that who's believing in them, Cinzi Lavin is believing in
really
them.
So do what you want to do. I believe in you and I'm behind you and I'm wishing the very best for you. And if I can help, I will.
That is so amazing. I mean, in today's world where people do not know how to help themselves, you're open to help everyone, and that is so inspiring. And I'm being thankful that being able to share this podium with you, and being able to learn a lot more about the humanity, spirituality, music, and inspiring yourself is the key to inspiring others. And that's what the motivation that works for people to help the world. And it's an amazing experience to have such an amazing person like you to be on the podcast and being able to help the community.
Oh, and it has been amazing to get to meet and to know you, and what a wonderful journey you're on. I'm excited for you sharing with me what's going on with you, because it makes it just as exciting for me to find out what's going on with you and how things are going and what direction you're going and the beautiful things that you're doing. So I am with you on your journey and very excited and wishing you the best too.
Thank you so much. So for the viewers, if you need any help in regards to the music, acting, Cinzi has a website that I'm going to share, in the description box, and you can definitely reach out to her. I'm also going to share the LinkedIn profile if you would like to connect. And I personally feel that Cinzi has a lot more to offer what we have just discussed on the podcast, because on the 40 or 50 minutes on a podcast is not something that can cover her entire life. She's a true inspiration and a motivation for the world. And this book is just a beginning, but I would say that there is a lot more that Cinzi has to offer, which a book or a podcast cannot cover. So anytime you need any help and related to the music or acting, I mean, Cinzi is your answer.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you to all my wonderful Holonians out there. I'm sending you my good wishes as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cinzi. It was a pleasure having this podcast with you.
Thank you.